我眼前的这大哥就是麻省Holyoke的市长，在这里你不用预约，只要你有事情就可以去到他的办公室，和他说你所遇到的问题。今天我就亲自试了一下，而且还问了他一个最难的问题，那就是关于当地的种族歧视。
我前面就是到他这个 Holyoke 的市政厅，
哇，这个是第一次，就是和市长见面，还是有点紧张。
这位市长很年轻，也是 Holyoke 历史上第一位波多黎各裔市长。对于我来说，这是第一次采访市长。说实话，一开始还真的有点紧张。不过他很亲切，还安慰了我几句，让我很快的就平复了心情。
But I also just curious, what make you start a career in the government?
I was born and raised here in the city of Holyoke. I have been involved for a very long time with different youth-related initiatives. Different quality of life objectives, just an active participant in my community. Never did I imagine that I'd be pursuing an opportunity to serve my community as the mayor. I started my career, my first big boy job, for a local housing authority. While I was there, I got my master's in public administration. Once I got my MPA, I landed a career working for a regional metropolitan planning organization, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. In that process, I learned a lot about local government management, and an opportunity came up for a small town outside of the city of Westfield called Blandford, Massachusetts. They were looking for a town administrator. An opportunity came up, I pursued it, and I worked there as the town administrator for 3 years. In a community like Holyoke, when I was there, the former mayor had moved on. I was the 6th candidate. Fast forward, and here I am, city's mayor.
他也是跟我说，之所以能顺利的当选市长，就是因为对本地的社区有很深入了解。这其中有一个很重要的问题，就是当地有各个族裔，如何能更合理的代表他们的权利。
And I think the biggest challenge is lack of representation. Being a representative of the public, and a large portion of your population is Puerto Rican or Latino. Folks here too, Colombians, Dominicans, small number of Mexican folks. How can you appropriately represent those groups? I think that's the biggest challenge, is just adequate representation of the different groups. For a long time, you had activists fighting structural racism, demanding a seat at the table. Now we got a seat at the table. You see more and more people of color coming to the table. When you ask, what's the biggest challenge for the Latino community, it's that. In a lot of ways, being the first elected Puerto Rican mayor in this city, that has break down a lot of those barriers. I'm just proud, very proud that this community elected one just makes me feel like the city is ready to turn the page.
在 Holyoke 这个城市有超过1半人口是波多黎各裔。在我之前跟2位波多黎各裔移民 Monica 和 Angie 交流时，他们都提到自己在这里遇到了不少不公平的待遇，感觉并没有被当地所接受。
We still face problems with white people.
I mean, you guys treat it differently?
Yeah.
From
even people around, they treat us bad, or you see them treating bad people from the street. They still have some of them here.
Buying a home, buying a business could be very complicated because there's expectations, and people that are selling these homes or people that are selling these bars are not okay with the Spanish community owning their own businesses. We tend to bump into people that don't want to sell us a home or don't want to sell us a business because of our culture differences.
我也就趁机问了市长这个敏感而又现实的问题。
And also, you also mentioned there's constructional racism. That's what
Structural racism.
Yeah, that's also what I interview people, get some stories, about it. They mentioned sometimes they are treated differently from local people. Even from Juan, always complaining about the police. He said police always pick on him, loud music, or when people hanging out around. He feels like he's treated differently. But
Yeah. Structural racism, a lot of people confuse it. Doesn't mean that people are racist. It doesn't. When you have the discussions about structural racism, there's folks, particularly white folks, that get offended. Oh my God, you're calling me racist. It's not that we're calling you racist. There's systems and policies that we created, that white men created, right? Because these are old rules. and they agree to them based on their culture, right? What they like and that's what we call systemic racism. So how do we untangle that? And we just need to empower people getting into positions of leadership, and then we still got to follow the process. It's still the law. That I think you just brought up a great example about Fiesta Cafe, and that's the problem he's constantly bumping into. No one's telling him no. He gets a permit to play loud music on a Sunday. The permit's to 9 o'clock. 9:30 comes around, you're playing loud music. And the officers sometimes, not sometimes, like, it puts them in an awkward position because they get it too. They don't want to go in there and write the ticket. They understand, but they got to do their job, So it's like, otherwise they can potentially get written up, right, for not enforcing the laws. So that's a good example of many things that we can potentially talk about when you're talking about being culturally sensitive, to embrace what cultures love to engage in a way that, making sure that we don't have systems that make people feel like they don't belong here, and that we're not culturally sensitive to what they like to do.
整个访谈感觉市长很直接，也没有绕圈子，也是这种坦率让我对这个城市多了一份尊重，也开始理解为什么这里的居民会说他是非常值得信任。
I am now officially announcing that I'm going to run for president of the United States. I'm just kidding. I'm joshing you.
Actually, I would like to see that.
Yeah, right.